Hello, how are you doing? Hope you're well, hope you're fine, hope everything's going smoothly for you. I'm going to tell you what I'm reading now, what I planned to read but now can no longer read because of our new state of emergency here in Fukuoka, and what I'm going to be reading instead of that, hopefully. So to begin with, the book by my bed at the moment is, if I can position it so it doesn't like glare at you horribly, that's fine. It is The Rest is Jungle, which is a collection of short stories by Mario Benedetti, Uruguayan. He's Uruguay, right? Uruguayan writer. But don't tell me I've messed up. Yeah, he's Uruguay. He's an Uruguayan writer. And so far, at first I was just dipping into it. I've had this for years, but like lately I've been kind of like I said, it's by my bed, so it's the one that I kind of when I'm in the mood, I grab it before sleeping. And yeah, the stories they've got like a really similar voice. It's kind of hit and miss with the short stories, but the hits are always like really great hits, like really great stuff, and the misses are always like interesting, so it's a misses, but in a good way, if that makes sense, or like the best that you can expect from that kind of book. So each story is usually like a little psychological vignette into quite mundane lives and characters' relationships between like families and friends and stuff, but often leading towards something a bit unsettling and kind of cruel. Not always, but like so far that's happened a few times. And sometimes if it doesn't quite go there, at least you see like the potential for mundane kind of ways of thinking to become kind of strange and a bit upsetting. But like, yeah, they're really also like it's grounded firmly in just the everyday life kind of stuff, and that's quite nice and pleasant and easy to read. The language is very simple, which is really nice, like as a book to read before going to bed. I'm going to read you just a little bit of the first story here called Presentiment. It says, I pressed the doorbell twice and immediately knew I was going to stay. I have inherited these presentiments from my father, may he rest in peace. I love that for me because that's just like really Latin American, like this kind of mix of juju and Christianity, and also like, it gets the story already, like we have a bit of characterization and we have intrigue and what's going to happen, why would she be staying in this house that she's ringing the doorbell on, and what's her psychic abilities like really, and I don't know. So it's also loads of conversations, just like normal conversations between people. Sometimes the stories are just people chatting, and I really like books which are like that, which are just like people having a conversation. Like, yeah, that really appeals to me. So far this is really nice, but it's kind of like, it's not meaty, it's just like, it's something that you go for like little bits and pieces now and again. In terms of like the main course, I got this book out of the library a while ago, The Gathering by Enright. This is kind of funny because like, okay, where to begin with this one? Winner of the Man Booker Prize 2007. So yeah, when the pandemic kind of thing started, I read this article on The Guardian, which was just like different writers, kind of famous writers, talking about how they were dealing with lockdown and stuff like that. And it was kind of boring because most of them are quite wealthy people because they're famous writers, and so they're just like kind of chilling in their big gardens and or in the woods that are next to their house, and it's just like wasn't that relatable or But Anne Enright, her one was so interesting and like kind of soothing, and I don't remember exactly what she wrote, but she just gave some advice as well for like being locked into your house and how, I don't know, it was written so well and I loved it, and it really kind of touched something, and I thought I want to read something that this person has written, like fiction. So I looked her up. I saw she's one of these new Irish writers who I haven't read anything by, but who's like become really famous in recent years. And her most famous book was this one, The Gathering, and it's a family saga about events that happened like in 1968, I think. Yeah, it says 1968. So it just sounded absolutely like ticking all my boxes. So I got it out of the library. I was really happy to see that it was in my library, and so far, it's not got much story, and I really need story usually, which is weird because like some of my favorite books are like quite abstract and like the plot isn't the main thing. But I just like at the beginning I was really enjoying some of the beautiful language and some of the like kind of really self-contained chapters. Like I like chapters that feel like short stories, and a lot of these do feel like kind of self-contained stories, but the actual plot overall is, hang on, I remember, it's near the beginning. Okay, so on page 12, the beginning of chapter 3, she says, "The seeds of my brother's death were sown many years ago. The person who planted them is long dead. At least that's what I think. So if I want to tell Liam's story, then I have to start long before he was born." And that's like as much plot as we get, basically, because then she's describing her life surrounding like her brother's death, and then she's also writing down her account of her like grandparents, and so it kind of keeps flitting back and forth between present and past. And it's a very it seems to be a very kind of fictionalized account of her past, because she talks a lot about sex between her grandparents, and like sex is just something that obviously most people don't know about their grandparents. And she writes really beautifully about sex. Like, I think I've mentioned before, but I think it's very difficult to depict sex in like things like books and movies like that, and not have it seem just kind of bad. But yeah, she does a really good job, I think. And like there's really great descriptions, and it's got this poignancy because it's it's being written by a narrator who's really depressed about the death of their brother, and that they're writing about their own grandparents having really intimate connections. So it's kind of weird framing, but that kind of just makes it all the more interesting. But those are the good things. Aside from that, like I said, there's no real story, and it's getting harder and harder to read. The more I go into it, the more of a chore it is really to get through. And I decided I have to kind of put it down. I'm not gonna completely get rid of it, because I'm not that kind of person. I'm that kind of masochistic reader where I am determined to see it through to the end. But I think I'll appreciate it more if I kind of put it down, refresh a bit with another novel, and then come back to it. Now we come up to the next part of the story, which is that I had my eye on these books in the library, these two books. The first one being The Golden Pavilion by Yukio Mishima, which is it's a fiction, but it's based on a historical event of this guy who burnt down the Golden Temple, or Kinkakuji, in Kyoto. And then the other one that I want to read that's in my library is A Comet in Moominland, which I presume is about a comet that comes down on Moominland. And I don't know how apocalyptic it is, or if it's like just a little thing, or I don't know. I'm really not sure about the plot. It may seem like kind of an odd pairing, but for whatever reason, that I don't know, but those are the books that my heart is calling for right now, and I know that they're there in the library. I've seen them on the shelves, and I don't know, maybe there's some connection, like fiery destruction. Maybe there's a great comparative analysis to be done there. I won't know until I've read them. But the point is that I can't get them now. I was just about to go get them at the library, and they had this job application which was lasting a few days because it was so complicated, and so I was putting it off. But finally I finished, and finally I could go to the library, and I checked online, and it's closed because we're in a state of public emergency, which I had heard, but I hadn't really been following the news or anything. So yeah, I didn't realize properly that it had started and what it entailed, actually, because it's always a bit wishy-washy here what actually is the public state of emergency. But basically it means that public institutions, public services are closed or reduced. So no libraries, and rail, main railways are closed down largely, or reduced services. And things that are private, like restaurants and bars, and I think cinemas, and all the things where you'd expect coronavirus can actually spread, are all still open, because there's weird laws in Japan where the government can't actually force private businesses to close down. They can just ask them nicely and offer them subsidies if they do. But of course, if you run a cafe, you're gonna get more money by staying open. So it's all really ridiculous. But anyway, the point is I can't go to the library. So it means I get to hang on to this book for a really long time, which is, I guess, nice in its own way. But also, I have to put my Golden Temple and my Comet in Moominland aspirations to the side and find something new. I went to my bookshelf, and I've only got about 10 books left. Now that I did all my Greek myth reading, and that cleared out a chunk. So that was in April. I'll leave a link somewhere up there. But yeah, I've only got about 10 books left unread on my bookshelf, and none of them are that appealing to me. It's like the dregs, it's the bottom of the pile, and they're probably great books, but they're just nothing that's really grabbing me right now. But what I do have that's enticing is an ebook, Dawn by Octavia Butler. And yeah, like she's kind of popular now, I think, on BookTube. Her book, what's it called? The Parable of the Sower, or a parable of the. I think it's the Parable of the Sower, about a black woman who time travels to the times of slavery and like how she deals with all that. But anyway, that book seems to be kind of popular now. I've seen it on a few BookTube videos. But yeah, so she's like a famous science fiction writer. The book that I'm interested in, though, is Dawn. I don't know much about it. I know that it's about aliens, and I think the main character is abducted, and the aliens want to breed with her to create like a new species, half human, half alien, or something like that. Sounds like really sensationalist and lowbrow, like one of those tabloidy things, you know, where it's like I had sex on a spaceship or something, and I'm all here for that. Like I'm really excited about it. There's one of my favorite books is the Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham, which is about this quiet, cozy little English village called Midwich, where all of a sudden all the women who can get pregnant do get pregnant overnight, and it's sort of about like kind of the scandal because it's set in like, you know, post-war England, and also like the, you know, like social kind of implications of that, of like first of all the pregnancies and then the rather peculiar children that are born. But yeah, I love that book and I love the premise and I love the idea. And I think the reason I first heard about this one is because people who like the philosopher Gilles Deleuze tend to like this book, or at least like it's been recommended as sort of fiction which relates to his philosophy, and I don't really know how. But also, yeah, I didn't mention that. Also, I've been reading this book, 1,000 Plateaus, by Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari. I don't know how to say it very well, but yeah, this is a book that I've been reading for years on and off, and I thought I'd give it another shot because I had a bit of time, and it's so dense and difficult, and I'm not sure how far I can actually get in it without making my brain melt even more than it's already melting because of the humid weather, which has just appeared in the last like couple of days out of nowhere. But anyway, like, yeah, so rather than read Deleuze philosophy, I thought I could read fiction which expresses that philosophy, at least from what I've heard. So I'm quite excited about that. What I would imagine is the case, based on the very little information that I know about the book, is that it's to do with the idea of like kind of hybridity. So like with Deleuze's philosophy, there's basically two ways of thinking about hybrids. You know, so you've got like things like centaurs, which are, you know, like half man, half horse, top part man, bottom part horse, and it doesn't really like kind of disrupt our ideas or images of what a man is and what a horse is. If anything, it kind of like solidifies like this is man, this is horse. Like we understand that they're two very separate entities and they've just been kind of like smushed together. Whereas the other way of thinking about hybrids is more like werewolves. So you know, you get bitten and you get kind of changed or infected, you know what I mean? Vampires are also similar, right? So you're not man and you're not wolf, you're like wolf man, you know? And so it's like what's human and what's wolf kind of create a new thing which changes, which transforms, which has something of one and something of the other, but when combined actually creates a third new thing, right? Also, like the movie The Fly, David Cronenberg's movie The Fly, which I absolutely adore, is this kind of like philosophy, I think. You know, for those who don't know, it's based on a short story actually, which I've looked for all over the internet and cannot find. If anyone knows where you can, you know, either buy the book or, you know, find the text of The Fly, then please let me know in the comments. But anyway, the movie by David Cronenberg, the 80s movie, it's about a scientist who gets into a teleporter, and he teleports from one machine to the other, but unbeknownst to him, a little fly gets into the other one. So when they teleport, their DNA merges, or the fly gets like kind of absorbed into his body. But like one of the main points of the movie is that he is not like a man and a fly that have been like mushed together, like, you know, his head is a fly's head and his body is the point is that he's like a new thing. He's a new creature. He refers to himself as Brundlefly. His name's Brundle, and it's a fly, so he's the Brundlefly. And this idea of like potential and like possibility is like, you know, coupled with the fact that he can't actually exist in this world and his body is degrading, is what's like kind of the pulse, the heart of the film. And I love it. I can't get enough of it. There's this great line where he says like, have you ever heard of an insect politician? I want to be the first insect politician. and it's that kind of like madness and weird mesh of things, and also like aspiration and hope for something new, which is a great part of that movie, and which is connected to the philosophy of Deleuze. And I wonder and kind of hope that it'll be a theme in Dawn, but we'll see. I'll let you know when I read it. I'm going to start today, I think. I'm going to start maybe right after I finish putting this video online. So hopefully some pulpy philosophical sci-fi is what I need to refresh my mind and my body, and make reading this book more bearable, and make it more interesting, because it's dull at the moment. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. That's all for now. I hope you're well and healthy and safe, and reading good books wherever you are in the world. See you next time. Bye bye.